We're rolling, okay. I just want to say hello to all my fellow Iowans. I'm here at the state capitol at sunset on 119, and just a few things I'd like to say. The reason why I'm running is that the elected officials that we have now, I've met several of them, and they don't seem to care about our problems. They don't seem to understand where we come from, and they don't seem to hear us. They don't seem to hear our complaints. So it was very sad this summer that President Obama was unable to attend the Gettysburg 150th anniversary of the battle that saved the Republic. And I'm not sure if he sent anyone, but it would have gone a long way towards healing the nation had he gone there and given a good speech. So since he wasn't there to do it, I'm gonna do Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and I apologize for the trains, but Abraham Lincoln was a big fan of the railroads. So the Gettysburg Address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that the nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate. We cannot consecrate. We cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they fought here, have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Sorry about the noise there. Someone didn't like my flags, so I can't help that. The next issue I'd like to address is the Fourth Amendment. It still exists. You haven't repealed it, so we still have it. You can't do these things. The Fourth Amendment says, and it was adopted in 1792, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now, there's one Supreme Court Justice, Justice Louis Brandeis, who really understood the Fourth Amendment, and he was in the minority opinion often when they were ruling on some of these cases. So here's a case called Whitney versus California, 1927. Quote, "Those who won our independence believe that the final end of the state was to make men free to develop their faculties, and that in its government the deliberative forces should prevail over the arbitrary. They valued liberty both as an end and as a means. They believed liberty to be the secret of happiness, and courage to be the secret of liberty. They believe that freedom to think as you will and to speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth. That without free speech, and assembly, discussion would be futile, that with them, discussion affords ordinarily adequate protection against the dissemination of noxious doctrine, that the greatest menace to freedom is an inert people, that public discussion is a political duty, and that this should be a fundamental principle of the American government. Yeah, we went wrong somewhere there, gentlemen. Here's another quote from Whitney. Fear of serious injury cannot alone justify suppression of free speech and assembly. Men feared witches and burnt women. It is the function of speech to free men from the bondage of irrational fears. Those who won our independence by revolution were not cowards. They did not fear political change. They did not exalt order at the cost of liberty. Courageous, self-reliant men with confidence in the power of free and fearless reasoning applied through the processes of popular government. No danger flowing from speech can be deemed clear and present unless the incidence of the evil apprehended is so imminent that it may befall before there is an opportunity for full discussion. If there be time to expose through discussion the falsehood and fallacies, to avert the evil by the processes of education, the remedy to be applied is more speech, not enforced silence. And this is the best stuff here from the Olmsted decision in 1928 from Brandeis. Regarding the Fourth Amendment, the progress of science in furnishing the government with means of espionage is not likely to stop with wiretapping. Ways may someday be developed by which the government, without removing papers from secret drawers, can reproduce them in court, and by which it will be enabled to expose to a jury the most intimate occurrences of the home. Advances in the psychic and related sciences may bring means of exploring unexpressed beliefs, thoughts, and emotions. That places the liberty of every man in the hands of every petty officer, was said by James Otis of much lesser intrusions than these. To Lord Camden, a far slighter intrusion seems subversive of all the comforts of society. Can it be that the Constitution affords no protection against such invasions of individual security? I believe it does. I believe that the government is acting in the wrong and they are violating the Constitution and the Fourth Amendment with the warrantless wiretapping of everyone. Continuing in Olmsted, the makers of our Constitution undertook to secure conditions favorable to the pursuit of happiness. They recognized the significance of man's spiritual nature, of his feelings, of his intellect. They knew that only a part of the pain, pleasure, and satisfactions of life are to be found in material things. They sought to protect Americans in their beliefs, their thoughts, their emotions, and their sensations. They conferred, as against the government, the right to be let alone, the most comprehensive of rights and the right most valued by civilized men. Experience should teach us to be most on guard to protect liberty when the government's purposes are beneficent. Men born to freedom are naturally alert to repel invasion of their liberty by evil-minded rulers. The greatest dangers to liberty lurk in insidious encroachment by men of zeal, well-meaning but without understanding. I would argue that that covers the people in charge of this country right now. Decency, security, liberty alike demand that government officials shall be subjected to the same rules of conduct that are the commands to the citizen. In a government of laws, existence of the government will be imperiled if it fails to observe the law scrupulously. Our government is the potent, the omnipresent teacher. For good or for ill, it teaches the whole people by its example. Crime is contagious. If the government becomes a lawbreaker, it breeds contempt for law. It invites every man to become a law unto himself. It invites anarchy. To declare that in the administration of the criminal law, the ends justifies the means. To declare that the government may commit crimes in order to secure the conviction of a private criminal would bring terrible retribution. Against that pernicious doctrine, this court should resolutely set its face. Well, they didn't. So he was in the minority, and they were allowed to spy for decades. So warrantless wiretapping for decades. Why am I here? Well, I'm here to ask some questions and raise some points. So, this is a social studies by an author by the name of Scott Forsman. I love his work. He does great work. I know it's a corporation, but I don't think the students do or the parents. So. Government by the people. This is on page 48. The founders of our country set up a very wise plan for governing our nation. This plan is a document called the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution starts off with the words, "We the people." These three words show how important the idea of democracy is for the United States. So already we're starting with the socialism here. We don't live in a democracy, we live in a constitutional republic, and it's a federal constitutional republic. The power of our government does not come from government leaders, it comes from citizens who elect those leaders. There are three levels of government. The first level is the local government. Now, you already know all that stuff. At least I hope you do. But here's the best part. It's got a picture here. Three levels of government. It says the national government. The President of the United States is the head of the national government. The President gets authority to run the country from the United States Constitution. Yeah, I didn't know he ran the country. I thought he was just the head of the executive branch, and there's two other branches plus the unelected administrative branch. So there's actually four branches, but we won't go into that right now. More trains. Tell you what, I'm going to wrap it up tonight, and I will come back another day and finish up. Thank you.